Hello friends and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be doing an unhaul, which I'm very excited to do, but I'm more so excited to have done. I feel like the reason I've been putting this off for so long, though I've been desperately wanting to do this for so long, is because there's just so much and I have just been putting it off. So today, and maybe also tomorrow, we're going to go through all of the books that I have and just get rid of things. I feel like there's so many things on my shelves that I'm just not touching, especially because I have been in such a KU like moment, and then I end up reading nothing that I actually own, and then I feel like I'm more encouraged to read things on KU as opposed to reading the things that I already have. That's just the mood apparently. So we are going to tackle my physical books. It's currently like 7:45. It is summer, thankfully, so we'll have sunlight for a little bit, but not for very long, and maybe not as long as I absolutely need to have it. So this video may or may not last more than just today, but we'll find out. Quick little overview of all of the shelves that I have currently in my home with the before view. I have this bookshelf behind me, which is currently all of the books that I have read recently. These shelves are fairly new, so what ended up happening was I wanted kind of a trophy shelf, and then as I started to read books, there was open space here, so this became the shelf that I put everything on after I read it, which I feel like works very well for me, having a read slash favorite shelf and then a TBR shelf. Issue being that the TBR shelf, it's so full of so many books that I will literally never get to, and then I don't race for a single thing on there. I think the biggest reasoning as to why I kind of got into that thing was because one of my hobbies basically would be to go to used bookstores and just like buy cheap books for fun. Problem with that is that a lot of the books that I bought were YA fantasy, and I just don't. YA and I have been through it. Right now we're on a down tick. We are a little bit less interested in YA fantasy at the moment. Not to say that I don't have some favorites from that genre, but I just don't really feel encouraged to pick things up. If I bought something for really cheap, and I know that I could probably get it again for really cheap, and also if I have not picked it up in probably this many years, I should probably let it find another home that would pick it up a lot sooner than I would. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. We're gonna go shelf by shelf by shelf by shelf by shelf by shelf by TBR shelf. I think I'm procrastinating a little bit. I'm very excited to do this, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I feel like being very cutthroat, which is good, but then also I'm gonna have to, like, once I pull the books off my shelves, I'm gonna have to actually go somewhere, so let's get into it. First things first, legitimately just looking at the shelf, here's the thing. I'm a little bit concerned because I'm having a bit of an identity crisis in the sense that I feel like I don't necessarily need all of the Sarah J Maas books that I have, that I spent a good hot minute collecting. So I'm not going to get rid of any of them right now, but I'm thinking I definitely don't need duplicate copies of the original paperbacks. Basically, I ended up finding them for super cheap, and so I picked them up and then I ended up hoarding them. If I already have one, what's the point of having another? I got very stinking lucky to get these for very cheap. Going to used bookstores during like spring cleaning times when people just like either A, didn't know what they have, or B, just wanted to get rid of something, so they took it to the used bookstore, and the used bookstore just didn't realize how much it's actually worth, and so some of these I got for like $7. So I ended up buying more of them, and I just feel like for how many people are looking for them, I don't need multiple copies. But then also my Throne of Glass sets, I have 2 hardcover sets. I love this set. I will never get rid of this set. I don't know that I necessarily need this set. I also don't necessarily know that I need the original paperbacks anymore. Mostly because I do have the new paperback set, and I don't feel like I'm gonna use these because they're not annotated in, and whenever I do reread the series, which if you're wondering, Throne of Glass is my favorite of all time, so it kind of makes sense why I have so many. But when I go back and reread the series and annotate it, I will be annotating the new covers. Also, the new covers have completely grown on me. When they first released, I hated them, and now I'm like, this is beautiful. For now, everything on this shelf is staying. I really wanted to get alternate dress jackets for my Crescent City books, but I don't have any yet, and now I just have like 3 copies. I have 4 copies. I have 5 copies because I have duplicate Barnes & Noble exclusive editions in the living room because one set's annotated and one set's not. It's a whole thing. Okay, I have a problem and we are rectifying. We're working on that problem today. For now, I think this is all going to stay. I feel like I could get rid of some of these Fourth Wing copies because I do have 2 originals and then 2 of the holidays in a paperback. I feel like that's a lot, but also I'm not quite ready to get rid of those yet. Assistant to the Villain, I could definitely see being unhauled at some point. I think I'll wait till the second book comes out in the series and then I'll decide. I liked it. I didn't like it enough necessarily. So we'll see. June Pharaoh, Spells for Forgetting. This is also kind of everything in my collection currently. Moment, which is fun. I think everything on this shelf is going to stay. I'm kind of half debating on Mistborn. I'm gonna keep it for now. I just didn't love it. I've partially DNF'd the series at this point, but it's only a partial DNF, so we'll keep it for now. Literally all of these are going to stay. I think all of these are gonna stay too. Yeah, no. So basically we're starting this on a very high note in which we're getting rid of nothing. However, we will pick up the high note momentarily. Okay, so let's talk about what's down here at the bottom. Stick with me for a sec. I feel like, I don't think I'm going to do it yet, but I feel like I kind of want to get rid of my Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I just didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I also have signed copies of the last two books, and I feel like somebody else would enjoy them more. I'm gonna keep them for now, though. Silver and the Bone, we're definitely keeping. Sky in the Deep and all of the millions of versions that I have, we're definitely keeping. I think we're getting rid of the other Adrian Youngs. I read Fable, and it was fun. Namesake I read, and it was okay. And then Saint I started, and I DNF'd it. Last Legacy I haven't read yet, but I just don't know that I will ever read these, so I think I'm gonna get rid of them. Yeah, it's happening. That felt good. I desperately need to finish the last book in the Prison Healer series, and I'm obsessed. Divine Rivals, I liked it. I don't necessarily have a big burning interest to read book 2, which I do have, but I will probably keep it. I will keep it because maybe I'll read that sometime this winter. The Remnant Chronicles and Universe and It's About These, duology, whatever, solidly keeping. Realm of Oblivion, my bestie Marie. Oh, okay. Okay, these are absolutely going to fall, and they're just gonna be down there for a minute. Chaos is already occurring. I listened to this audiobook. I thought it was fine. I didn't love it. And I have the whole series. Even though the map is really cool, this is kind of going in a maybe pile, but ultimately I think I'm getting rid of it. Okay, in the bottom shelf, we have our Percy Jackson, my Harry Potter series. The Renegade series by Marissa Meyer, which is super fun. 9 Lives of Chloe King. This is one of the oldest books that I own, like one of the oldest books that I first bought, I guess. And I was obsessed with this series as a kid, so I'm gonna keep it for now. And then The Darkest Minds, these are all signed and personalized. So those are definitely staying. Now this down here is actually a TBR shelf. The last book in Prison Healer, Icebreaker. It's such a random grouping. Literally all of these, minus this, My Sweet Baby Child, that doesn't really have a better place to go at the moment, is down here. This was kind of like an urgent TBR that just kind of didn't urgently get done. So we're keeping all of those. Shelf 1, done. Which is just kind of an easy shelf to kind of build up some momentum. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Do I do the big TBR shelf or do I do the living room one first? I don't know. Let's do this one here because I'm not ready for it. And because we're gonna have more sunlight in the living room one with the windows later. Yeah, okay. Okay, first and foremost is going to be getting an angle on this bookshelf. The alternate covers of Boys of Tommen are literally the coolest things ever. I've not read the series. I've had these books for like a year and I need to get to them. I feel like this whole shelf, I put things on it and this is like kind of the later shelf and it needs to be more like the now shelf, but we're working on it. I did just recently haul this book because these are such heavy paperbacks and this is so much floppier and smaller, just nicer to read out of. So I have this. Normal People by Sally Rooney, we're definitely keeping. Say You Swear, everyone talks about and I want to know what the people are talking about. The last 2 books in the Magnolia Parks universe that I currently own. I've heard a lot of really cool things about tandem reading these 2, which I may or may not look into doing. Maybe in like August or September. Lee Bardugo's The Familiar. I am literally so excited for this book. Tomorrow feels like it's on the chopping block. I wasn't planning on getting this book ever, but my best friend read it and freaking loved it. And then I saw a signed copy of it and I just felt like I needed to join the hype train and like figure out what that was all about. But I got like 20 pages into it and I feel like I'm not smart enough for it. So we'll see if this ever happens, but I feel like I'm gonna keep it for now. Day of Fallen Night. We'll talk about Day of Fallen Night here in a minute. Empire the Vampire, I need to get to so aggressively. The Appeal, I feel very tempted to get rid of this, but given that I'm not very much of a thriller mystery kind of gal, but it's like a multimedia format and I feel like it'd be so fun. Also, I love a good murder mystery dinner and I feel like I would love that book. The Bone Season, I want to read this. I desperately want to read this. I feel like this book is so up my alley, and also now that this is the edited version, technically, it's a need, okay? It's a solid need. I'm gonna outright say that probably everything on this shelf is going to be staying. We do have my Romantasy-a-thon TBR, which, not that. My Romantasy-a-thon TBR, I feel like I have made not a very big dent in this, to be honest with you. Amazing. So here's, I do want to address, I'm not going to read this right now. I'm not going to read this until this republishes. Bye. There apparently have been a lot of edits. I don't feel like I'm going to have enough time to reread this if I read this indie copy and then read the traditionally published version. So I'm going to wait for that to come out. I'm so excited for this release though. I am desperate for it. All these books, we're going to move out of the way for a second. Everything on this shelf is, I don't feel like I would miss this book. I listened to maybe like 15% of the audiobook and I thought it was fine, but I didn't think it was just like the greatest thing that's ever existed. Also, the sun right here in the middle is hilarious to me, but I don't feel like I'd miss it. So I think that's my sign. Then we have the next books in the Red Rising series. This is like trilogy part 2 plus the 4th book that's coming out. I don't remember how many books are coming after this, but I know that there's at least one more that'll be coming after Lightbringer, but I will be keeping all of these. Hero of Ages, like I said, I'm going to keep all of my Mistborn books. Obviously keeping these two. This book right here is very high on my TBR, so I'm actually going to go ahead and grab this and put this in my Romantasy-a-thon TBR pile. I'm definitely going to be keeping Arch Conspirator. I have not gotten to it, but I'm very excited about it. These two books, okay, I did a terrible job dusting, my friend. Like, I knew I did a bad job, but like, amazing. I did get the Outcrate versions of both Legendborn and Bloodmarked. I have not read them yet. I very specifically heard that there was a giant cliffhanger in this one, so I was gonna wait until the 3rd book comes out, which we did get some news about. So I'm gonna keep waiting on these as far as TBR, but I'm going to definitely keep them. A Discovery of Witches is staying. I want to read these so bad again, maybe this fall. The rest of the Bargainer series is gonna be staying. Sons of Darkness, I need to read this. Name of the Wind, I don't know that I'm ever going to read this, but this is also the anniversary edition, so I'm going to keep it for now. I don't know. Tress, I still have not read, and I did get the, I don't even remember what this edition is technically called now, but this is the Kickstarter hardback version of this book, and I do have the ebook of it as well, so I need to chop and hustle on Tress. I feel like I'm going to like it like a lot. It's still plastic wrapped and everything. That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about these two for a second. Let's take a moment, okay? After DNFing this once, I recently tried to read Priory again. I couldn't do it. It is just a slow political fantasy, which I know for some people that is absolutely their jam. I made it to page 316 and I felt like we still weren't going anywhere and I just wasn't having fun. I have had this book since before the paperback came out. I'm pretty sure I've had this since at least 2020. I feel like it's time to get rid of it. However, I don't want to get rid of it if I read in like Day of Fallen Night, but I'm also concerned that I'm not going to like this one either if I didn't like this one. So I don't know. I think I'm going to read A Day of Fallen Night. Maybe I'll do a vlog at some point where I read some of these books. It's like a maybe. And then if I have to make the decision if I'm going to keep them then. I want to like Priory so bad. It's just like not my cup of tea. And I feel like it's going to be the same case with this, but also the cover of this is so pretty. It's so pretty. So we're keeping it for now, but like kind of tentatively. Yeah. Okay. So now we get into some more of the juicy action, we'll say. Okay. Some of these romances are definitely staying and I just haven't had the chance to get to them yet, but they are 100% staying. You like actually cannot see. These shelves go all the way up here. We're going to pull some of these out. Okay, this is gonna hurt some people's feelings, but I'm doing it. As Good as Dead. I gave the first 2 books in this series to my sister right after I had read them, thinking she would like them, and then I would read this and I would finish it. I still haven't read this. I did pick up the audiobook and I soft DNF'd it. I'm thinking it's gonna be more of like a hard DNF now, to be honest. But even if I do want to read it, I'm just gonna pick up the audiobook because that format is so good for these books. I'm not gonna really need the physical copy at that point, so I think I'm gonna get rid of this. Coldest Girl in Cold Town I still kind of want to read. This is a book that definitely needs to go. I was having a minute where I wanted to go back and reread The Shadowhunters. I'm not really back in that moment, but if I am, I will just get the full giant laundry list of books from the library. Listen, I read like half of the Atlas 6 and I DNF'd it and I wanted to go back and try it again. I think I'm gonna get rid of it. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of the whole series that I have, which we'll get rid of the other copies later. This is solidly staying. I think I'm gonna get rid of this, honestly. I think this is another book that if I read, I'm gonna keep it for now. Maybe this goes in the you have to read it pile, but I'm not very excited about, I'm getting rid of it. Okay, I'm just not gonna read it. Daughter of the Pirate King, I'm not gonna read, more than likely. Lost Unicorn, Queen's Rising, I don't think I'm gonna read this. That's in the unhaul pile. The Fifth Wave, I think I'm gonna keep it, even though I'm probably never gonna read it. And the Margaret Rogerson I'll keep for the fall, and then if I don't read them in the fall, I won't. I listened to the audiobooks of the first 2 books in this series, and I loved them. I don't know that I will ever go back and finish the series. And I don't even think that I own the full series, so I'm just gonna get rid of that, I think. Okay, Catwoman Soul Stealer. This is signed, so I'm going to keep it. But if it wasn't signed, I don't think I would. I need to get the audiobook or something. I made it like halfway through, and then my library hold went up, and I was like, well, that's sad. And then I didn't ever go back and read it. Fragile Threads of Power. I think I'm gonna get rid of this along with The Darker Shade of Magic. I think. Yeah. Okay. Alone with You in the Ether. I think I'm gonna keep this because this is so short, and I feel like I am still interested in reading it, but if I don't get to it by this time next year, honestly in the next 6 months, but we're saying that for now. Okay, Den of Vipers. I found a physical copy for $4. If I ever read this, I'm not gonna read the physical copy anyways. Redeeming Love, I still kind of want to read this. Here's the other thing I'm gonna keep Alone with You in the Ether. I did find the indie copy for like $13. So I want to read it and make sure that this is actually worth something that's keeping for me. Maggie Moves On, Throttled, Forever and Ever, in the Long Game, Red, White, and Royal Blue. I'm going to keep all of those. Wow, that is dusty. Okay, I have a feeling I'm going to get rid of a good chunk of these books. I'm going to keep both of these. I did just recently get them, and they were a little $3 a piece, but I'm actually in the middle of reading both of these series. I have books 2 and 3 in the living room, solidly keeping this. I think I'm going to keep We Hunt the Flame, but if I don't read it this time next year, it's gonna go. Good Omens, I'm gonna get rid of. I have this in book 1. I'm gonna get rid of it. The Iron King, I don't know, this still sounds really fun to me. I might keep this. I should get rid of it. I can get it from the library if I want to read it. Couple Next Door. I would like to read this. I started a while ago and then DNF'd it, but I would like to finish it. The Only Good Indians. This is probably like the only horror I own, and I actually really want to read it. I will say that for the fall. There's so much stuff in here that I will never read. Nocturnal is the only poetry book that I own, and it's actually fantastic. And I don't even like poetry. I think I'm getting rid of that. I'm not a nonfiction reader. Marie Lu, I love her to pieces. I don't think I'm ever going to read any of these, honestly. And again, if I need them, I can just get them from the library. Left Behind. I actually own a good chunk of these books back at my parents' house, and I will probably never read them, honestly. I had it in my head that I wanted to read them, and now there's a million other things that I want to read. Okay, again, nonfiction I will never read. Nonfiction I will never read. City Brass. Gone Girl I've already read. Obsessed. When I did all of my rainbow shelves, all of this back here became like all of the black books. So some of these I had read, some of them I haven't. Let's go through this pile real quick. The Magician's keeping, Poppy War keeping, Project Hail Mary, Ember of the Ashes. All of these are TBR books that I'm very much not wanting to get to. A Fire Endless. I feel like I'm gonna like A Fire Endless more than I like A River Enchanted. I thought A River Enchanted was fine. I'm just not a slow fantasy reader. I'm gonna keep it for now, but we'll circle back. Hattie LaRue, I still have not read it and I need to read it. Okay, the Atlas Experience said was gonna go. Actually, my roommate's book, Seven Husbands. I haven't read it and I don't think I'm ever gonna read it. I'm just not into contemporary. Also realizing I did not put foundation on the back of my face, so if you're looking at it, hi, how are you? Still in Air, we're keeping. I would like to read this. Babel, whatever. I started to read and I annotated and I took hella notes. Oh, these notes are actually still in here. I was like taking notes and stuff. I was literally doing the most. I think I'm going to keep it for now, but I really feel like I should get rid of it, but I think I'm going to keep it for now. And I can't explain that decision, but we're just going with it. Aragon, solidly keeping. This is a book by a local author that I would like to read, and so is this one. Okay, this we're solidly keeping. Court of the Vampire Queen. I think I'm going to keep this, and I can't explain that either. And I'm going to keep these. Even though I don't feel like I should, but I'm going to. Crave, I'm going to get rid of this whole series. It's just not, I feel like I like this style of book, but I've read, I think like 3 or 4, maybe just 3 books in this series, and I just don't really feel like I'm going to go reread. It's been so long, and I don't feel like I'm going to reread it to catch up. So I think it's just time to college. The Last Magician sounds interesting because it is urban, so I'm going to keep it. Dreams Lie Beneath and Vespertine, I'm still going to keep them, even though I'm still probably not going to get to them because these were on my 2023 backlist and I didn't, and I need to. Daughter Spoken Bone, this whole series I'm very excited to read. This less so. Okay, bottom, my Excel 2013 textbook. We're keeping. Most of the books down here are just Twilight and things that I was already planning on getting rid of. This was kind of an unhaul section that just never got actually unhauled. Secret History, we're keeping this. Oh, and this is a collection of dragon books for my dragon video that need to just be moved somewhere else. I was planning on annotating Den of Vipers and sending it unhinged copies to one of my friends, and I don't think I'll ever read it yet again, so I don't think I need a mass market Twilight and this Eclipse. I can get rid of both of those. And then, bye, sorry. 13 Reasons Why I somehow have 2 copies. The City of Ember actually got in a little free library. It's just like a nostalgia thing, but I'm not going to reread it. Although, if you do have kids, solidly recommend the series. It was one of my favorites as a kid. And then I do have the rest of the DC superheroes books, and most of these are, I think all of these are signed actually. Catwoman, Soul Stealer was just like not my jam. So I don't feel like I need to keep the rest of these because they're all going to be kind of the same plot. My Kindle's under here, no! Okay, this unhaul pile is fairly massive from one shelf in which I feel like I didn't do that much to, so we're doing great. A couple of books that were hiding on my TBR shelf, I'm gonna keep these, but I'm moving them off of my TBR cart. I'm gonna redo that whole cart and make them a bit more relevant because right now we are in the knee-deep thick of Romantasy-a-thon. Anyways, I do have these as well. Okay, so this is the giant rainbow shelf that honestly I'm going to unrainbow. I think also the dog toy piles in the corner and the dog bed in the corner are my favorite pieces of the shelf. You're probably gonna barely be able to see the top of my head from this angle. We're just gonna roll with it for just a second. Lore I'm keeping because I've loved, I think all of these. Is this mine? So some of these books are my roommates. A lot of these white ones are hers. This one I'm definitely getting rid of. Blood and Ash. I am starting to feel the inkling. I read all the way up to Crown of Gilded Bones and I DNF this. I'm half tempted to finish this and read the rest of the series because I've heard really good things about the second part of the series. Prodigy, Hunger Games, The Maidens, Frankenstein, and what is that even called? The longest fantasy ever to sleep in a sea of stars? The longest sci-fi ever. It's not a fantasy technically. Crescent City. I think these second copies that I have are, yeah, these are gonna go. Because I already have one annotated set. I don't feel like I need 2 sets. When in Rome, I'm gonna keep The Road Back to You, Allegiant. This is signed, but I'm not gonna read it. I'm not gonna read it. Dark Matter. I'm excited about this TV show, Dark Places. We're not gonna talk about how many millions of copies I have of Red Rising. Demon Kings. I want to read both of these. Look out for the little guy. Listen, I liked it, but it's definitely a Marvel character writes a biography kind of thing. It's kind of a niche thing that I won't reread. So we're gonna get rid of this, but it was fun. I'm never gonna read this, even though this is a really cool like collector's edition. Need to reread Aragon, so I can reread this. We're gonna scooch you over for just a second. Love and Other Words I still have got to read. The Grace Year I've got to read. I'm gonna get rid of nonfiction that's mine. Titanic we could keep. Scythe, gonna get rid of you. Thursday Murder Club, I feel like I'm inclined to read this, but I'm not desiring to read it necessarily, so I feel like I should get rid of it. I know that my roommate might want to read it, so I'm gonna keep it, but I did get this in a little free library. And then I proceeded to buy the rest of the series. Why I did that, I do not know. But I did, and it's too late to fix that mistake. These are my roommates. I'm gonna see if my roommate wants to read this, but I'm just not gonna be reading it. Okay, so I read Twisted Love. I heard that the series gets better. I don't know that the series gets better, but I heard that, so I'm gonna keep them for now. But these are very close to being on the chopping block. Silent Patient, Stunning Amazing. This is what I'm gonna keep. People. Get rid of it. I'm gonna get rid of it. The Gilded ones, I don't think I'm gonna read this. Oh, and then my library pile of books up there that obviously will not be get rid of. This stack has already been gone through. This is a pile of books that I had initially pulled like a couple weeks ago on top of the pile of books that's like right behind it. I have the Barnes edition of Ninth House, so I don't necessarily need it. House of Dragons, now that I've kind of sat on this, I kind of want to keep it. So I'm gonna be keeping this one. The rest of these, getting rid of the series, I've kind of lost interest in the series. Defy the Night and Defend the Dawn, I liked books 1 and 2, but I've heard that book 3 is really not that great, and I'm like, I don't really feel like finishing it. I'm gonna end up keeping this. Since I am keeping the first one, I'm just gonna keep the whole series, but like hesitantly. Same thing with this one. I was so deeply disappointed in this book that I do not want to look at it any longer, to be honest with you. Which is like a lot of dramatic, but I stand by it. The rest of these I'm gonna get rid of. I'm glad my mom died. I loved. I don't feel like I need to reread it, but I did love this one. The rest of those I'm just straight up getting rid of. We're keeping City of Brass series. I've not read the series yet. This will probably be one of the only nonfictions that I haven't gotten rid of. A, because it's signed. B, because I freaking love Outlander and this man can do no freaking wrong in my head. And also I feel like this book would be really fun. So I'm going to keep it for now. The Hobbit. This is actually the copy that I read in high school, which I think is hilarious. And it does in fact match my Lord of the Rings copies. Matches in the sense that they are all mass markets. Keeping this. I keep hearing things about this. I think I'm going to keep it just because I've not read a heist novel that I've really liked. And I feel like this has a good chance. But it is a YA, so I may or may not ever get to it. The Beast by Katie Robert. I did not remember that I had this, but I feel like this would be a fun romantasy-a-thon, something or other, but I feel like this would be really good for the retelling prompt. I'm going to keep this and in fact pull that out. Something that I want to get to, I read the first 2 books in the series and they were fine. This is the 3rd book. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm not going to read it. Verity, this is a book that I threw across the room, and I think because it had such a strong reaction from me, it means that, I don't know, I still kind of like looking at it. I've gotten rid of all of her contemporary romance, but I was so curious about this book still, just even like what it is, so I'm gonna keep it for now. I'm making such a mess. I feel like I should be putting these in better piles, but I'm just not there. I'm curious to see how many of these books we actually end up getting rid of, because I'm thinking it's going to be not very many. Truthfully. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Inheritance over there gonna stay. This is gonna go. Also, why do I own this in a hardback? Oh, because I bought these so long ago when I didn't care that I had one book in paperback and one in hardback. I do care now. An Emily Henry book that I really need to read. I've only read one Emily Henry, and funnily enough, it's one that I do not own at all. Twisted Lies, we're going to read book 2 of that series and call it good. The Deal, I still haven't read. Beyond the Wand, I read this and loved this. I don't know that I need to keep it though. I don't necessarily not see myself rereading it, but I don't like see myself rereading it. We'll keep it for now. Little Fires Everywhere. I actually hijacked this book. When I studied abroad, this was actually one of the books that somebody had left in the room, and I traded it out with another book. So this book is really cool because I did get it in Spain. It's obviously in English, but it is a UK copy. This is almost a souvenir in my head. Have I read it? No. Should I read it? Yes. Do I feel like I'm gonna like it? I don't know. Probably not, which is probably why I haven't read it yet, but we're gonna keep it anyways. Okay, hear me out. I feel like this is something that I would like a lot, but watching people go back and reread it, I'm kind of like, I have a lot of romances that I want to read in very little time. Office Place, Enemies to Lovers just won't hit the same way that like a fan wrote Enemies to Lovers would hit, because I'm sorry, a real life Enemies to Lovers, you cannot possibly that enemies over a printer. You know, like rivals, yes. Enemies, there's just not the same amount of stakes. I'm gonna get rid of this and just watch the movie, truthfully. Lucy Hale is iconic, so I've been kind of saving off on watching the movie in case I do read it, but I think I'm just gonna give up on reading it and like just enjoy a rom-com movie out of the experience. It embodies. I do have you. I have started it. I've got to finish it. I don't know why I do like the series so much, but like as a TV series, I love it. Reading the book is terrifying and I freaking love it. Song of Achilles, I will never read this. I just won't. Sisters of Sword and Song. I feel like for YA fantasy as a standalone, I do quite like it. I'm never gonna reread it. So I'm gonna give this to someone who would appreciate it more than I would. Forging Silver into Stars. I don't know. This is signed. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of it. Okay. Rose Society also needs to go. I read it and I did really quite like it. Okay, now I'm feeling like I want to reread the series. So actually, whatever I said about the last book in this series, I'm actually going to keep it because I feel like the series was in fact fun and I would like to go back and reread it. We're just like a yo-yo. We just like keep coming around. Lord of the Rings books. Fun fact, I did read the first 2 books and then obviously The Hobbit. I still have not read The Return of the King. I don't feel like I would ever reread the books and I don't feel like I likely will ever actually read The Return of the King. So maybe these will be fun audiobooks at some point. I'm never gonna read these, but you know, I did really love the first 2 books plus the prequel, and the movies are absolutely unmatched. So they'll stay very safe on my shelves for now. We're gonna go down for a second. Starsight, I read Skyward and it was fun. Okay, it wasn't like earth-shatteringly amazing, but it was fun. And I feel like for a YA, it was fun. The question is, when will I go back and read this? I'm definitely going to keep these. I don't know when I'm gonna get to reading them, so We'll see. City Brows, we're gonna keep Soulmate Equation by Christina Lawrence. I really want to read. Everything just blends in together when it's all rainbow ordered. I did this last year and I liked it for like 2 seconds and then I hated it for mostly like ever since, and I have just never gone back and redone it. So subscribe to my channel if you want to see a reorganizing all my bookshelves video, because it needs to happen and I am very excited to make it happen actually. Okay, keeping Skyward. Did I annotate this one? I did, kind of. I mostly just tapped it. The series was so fun and quirky that it was just fun, that I feel like I still have a lot of interest in it. I'm never really in the mood for a YA sci-fi, but like I could be. So I don't really know where that leaves us other than later. Okay, The Kinder Poison. I've heard really good things about the series. I think I'm gonna keep this. Strange the Dreamer, I would like to read. Don't know that it's gonna be my type of thing. So I think like super prosy writing always has me kind of nervous. So I just keep putting it off. I'm gonna continue to put it off for just a little bit longer. This Lucy Score book. This book was half off and I'm a sucker for a good sale. And I had just finished Things We Left Behind. Things We Left Behind, the last book in the Knockout series, and I was kind of in the mood to read this. I feel like I would really like this series though. Like it just sounds fun. So I'm gonna keep this. I got this book with the intention of getting the first 2 books in like a BOGO Barnes & Noble sale, which these are often BOGO at Barnes, but I just ended up never getting them because I haven't read them yet. So maybe some point. Here's the thing with Frostblood. I read this book and I freaking loved it. I listened to the audiobook forever ago from the library and they did not have book 2 available, but I think I like it because it's elemental magic. First of all, I need to check the library and see if they even have book 2 now, because this was eons ago. I refused to buy a brand new copy of this and I've never seen, what is it, blood something? Fire, blood, who the heck knows what it's called? When it comes to I like to be burned, it's literally the last line in this book and I live. I'm gonna regret not putting all of these books back, but I'm not gonna right now. So but I'm almost guaranteed the rest of these I'm gonna keep. I'm not gonna keep Big Magic, the other Crescent City book, Reminders of Him. I bawled like a little tiny teeny little baby when I read this, and then I got to the ending and the ending happened. The reasoning for the ending happened and I just couldn't anymore. End scene. On Honeymooners I loved. Lightly Lost is a roommate's book. The Way of Kings. I got the, is this the Illumicrate version? Or is this the Fairy Loot? I don't remember. But I found part 2 by itself at my used bookstore for very cheap. And I got it and I desperately want to read it. So at some point we'll get into The Way of Kings. My millions of copies of Aragon. Some Veronica Roth books I would really like to get. Okay, The Young Elites is the first book in that, The Rose Society. And then the third book, whatever that book is called. And then Woman in the Window. An all-time favorite. Also, the movie was quite fire. The Midnight Library. I'm gonna keep it for now because I feel like it's gonna come up in a book club or something at some point. Gleanings, I really want to read Scythe, and this is the last book, so I'm gonna keep it. The 5th season, I so desperately want to read the series, and I have all the books, so maybe this will happen later this year. The End and Other Beginnings. This is technically stories that are included in part of the Mark universe. I want to read this, but I read the very first short story in this, and I bawled like a baby in like 20 pages. So I desperately want to read this book and then come back and finish this little novella. The Magicians, which I'm not sure if I talked about earlier. I want to read this series so bad. It feels like a very good fall series. Okay, The Wicked King. I want to do a Curl Prince reread like so bad. It was one of the very first audiobooks I ever read years ago. And I want to see how I think about it now. Children of Ragnarok. I read this for a book club and it was fun. I'm not going to reread it. I'm probably not going to continue the series, so this is going to go. The version we're keeping, River Enchanted. Kingdom of Back I would really like to read. Daughter of Darkness is part of the Child of Light. I do want to read that series. Forward because I can't not own Divergent. And then Outlander. Sweet baby Outlander. Love forever. Okay, and I think somehow that is all the books. Sitting on the floor, which was my first mistake. My second mistake was sitting on the floor with the dogs not in their crates, and now they're just going to swarm. Okay, so we have officially gotten rid of, did I say 76 or 73 earlier? Can you tell that I'm much more of a words person over a numbers person? Oliver, you too? What is this house, a playground? Okay, so shelves need to be reclaimed. So we have a couple of options as far as how we get rid of these books. Number 1 is obviously going to be giving them to my besties at Blur Bookshop. Love them, obsessed with them. Allie and Abe. peace and blessings. The second option is we take things to Second and Charles. Third option is that I list them on Facebook. I've done that a couple times and I've gotten really good results off of that. Fourth option is that we list things on Pango. I've never listed anything on Pango, but there are certain things that I will be doing it, I think. And I think I've been waiting to unhaul some of these because I just didn't want to go through the effort. Now I feel like it's time. We don't really have very many little free libraries where I live, at least of things that I've seen, so I might experiment with that direction. But if I do that, if I'm gonna give them away, I would rather just give them away to my friends. I'm going to look at this pile for probably, I'm gonna say a day, but we definitely know it's gonna be more than a day. And just make sure there's nothing in here that I actually do want to keep, which I kind of doubt is gonna happen. But the biggest thing is make sure that there is nothing else that I want to also include in this pile, because I was a little bit less cutthroat than I thought I was gonna be. However, we got a very satisfying pile. We're ready to go and get out of my house and free up some shelf space, but then also just like free up breathing room, because I feel like I'm just drowning in books. And I think because I've been reading on my Kindle more, I've been reading ebooks and audiobooks and things that I don't own, that I'm not just like swimming in after I read it, you know? I just feel the need to live a bit more, definitely not minimalistic, because that's not who I am. However, just a little bit less just like hoardy, you know? I feel like having one giant wall of bookshelves is the ultimate goal, but there's not really any places in my house where I can just do that right now. So because I do have 3 separate places where there are books, it's just kind of a lot to keep track of. I do know where everything is, but there's just a lot mentally that comes into play with that. So I think this is going to make me feel so much better until we buy a whole bunch more books. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed either watching me pretend to be cutthroat, but then actually not being cutthroat, but then kind of accidentally cutthroat, because I realized how many books that I have currently that I'm never probably gonna read. So then accidentally being cutthroat, like it's a weird cycle, but we did it. Well, we've pulled them off of the shelves. We've not actually gotten rid of it, but that's another problem for another multiple days. Hopefully this inspired you to also go through your books and just get rid of the things that are just taking up space, things that you're just not necessarily gonna get to. Now I feel like I'm going to pull a kinder poison into this pile. So make that 74/77. 7 is my lucky number. My birthday is July 7th, so it is my lucky number. So I feel like 77 is a good number. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next one.